the 3rd. Before we take roll call, I'd like to welcome Mr. Dan Romano to the West Clermont team, where he will be serving as our new treasurer. Mr. Romano, please roll call.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Present.
Mr. Rudy.
Present.
Mr. Schaff.
Present.
Mrs. Delaney.
Present.
Mr. Chumley.
Present.
All present.
Executive session. We do have a reason or need to go into executive session. So I'll make a motion to withdraw into executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee, and ask for a second.
Second.
Mr. Rudy, roll call.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Mr. Schaff.
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion approved. And so we're going to withdraw into executive session, and we'll be back in regular session at 7 p.m.
Hi there.
Hello, am I back on?
Hi, Meg. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
We have Mr. Romano with us.
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
I know. Oh, I know why. Is that little, there we go. Is that
There we
better?
go. Yep.
Uh,
All right. I think we're streaming live, so welcome back. Mr. Romano, could you please withdraw us from executive session?
okay. Mrs. Brinkman,
Present?
Mr. Rudy,
Present.
Mr. Schaaf,
Present.
Mrs. Delaney,
Present.
Mr. Chumley,
Present.
all present.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Romano, approval of minutes.
So the minutes for the minutes for July 6, 2020 of the regular board meeting are being presented. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah. Mr. Romano has given us the recommendation to approve the minutes as presented for July the 6th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Rudy, and a second?
Second.
Mrs. Delaney, discussion? Mr. Romano, roll call?
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, there was also the minutes for August, oh no, I'm sorry, for July 20th or 29th, the special board meeting. So those as presented.
Okay. Mr. Romano has given us the recommendation to approve the minutes for July the 29th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Schaaf, and a second? Was that Mr. Chumley?
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion by the board? Nope. Hearing none, roll call?
Mr. Schaaf,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
and Mrs. Delaney.
Yes.
5
Motion
yes.
approved. Moving on, and treasurer's business.
Thank you. We do not have the financial report for June. That both June and July will be presented at at the August 17th meeting.
Okay.
Just as a further note too, we will update as necessary the 5-year forecast based on some further action that the board may take tonight. I will also be meeting with representatives from Haran for an update on the health insurances. So we'll be bringing that at the August 17th meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to superintendent's business. Mrs. Adams.
Is going to come on and do the personnel update.
All right. Good evening, members of the board. Mrs. Adams, Mr. Romano. In front of you is the personnel agenda for August 3rd, 2020. On the agenda today, we have the resignation of Dr. Benjamin Jenkins and the resignation of one of our teachers, Megan Bowling. We also have on the agenda the hiring of Chuck LaFata into the position of Director of Secondary Special Education and Pre-K-12 Student Services. That title, he's actually filling Dr. Jenkins's role. We revised the title and the scope of work to better fit the needs of the district, so we welcome him. We also have hiring of 2 teachers. This agenda also includes proposed approval for renewals of exempted classified limited contracts, supplemental contracts for coaches and contest workers, hiring of substitute classified employees, the approval of 2 student teacher volunteers, and a list of stipends. I respectfully request that you approve the personnel agenda as submitted.
You've heard the recommendation of Dr. Foltz. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Delaney, in a second?
Second.
Mr. Schaff. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Schaff,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5
Motion
yes.
approved.
Thank you very much.
Item 5.02 is the West Clermont Education Association one-year labor agreement. And I respectfully request the one-year labor agreement with the West Clermont WCEA bargaining unit be approved as presented.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent, and I'll put that on the floor in the form of a motion and ask for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Delaney, discussion? Mr. Romano, roll call.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Schaff,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion approved.
Item 5.03 is Helping Ohio's Public Employee, also known as HOPE, their contract. I recommend that you approve the HOPE contract and the memorandum of understanding to roll over West Clermont HOPE Master Agreement to be approved as presented.
You've heard the recommendation of Superintendent Adams, and I'll put that on the floor in the form of a motion and ask for a second.
Second.
Mr. Rudy, discussion? Mr. Romano, roll call.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Schaff,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion approved.
Item 5.04 is new policy, and it's for Title IX regulations, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in district programs or activities. And sometimes our policy review and the implementation of the law don't always sync up as nicely as we would like. So I'm asking that the board express its intention to forego the requirements of board policy 0131 legislative, that action to approve the board policies stated in this resolution be taken only after proposed at a previous board meeting. So you're waiving and forgoing that second reading. And we're going to read this and vote on it tonight. Superintendent, I represent that you enact new policy 2262 Title IX regulations, non-description on the basis of sex in district programs or activities, to be approved as presented, because this law will go into effect on August 14th, 2020, before our next board meeting.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Chumley, and a second, Mr. Rudy. Okay. Discussion?
So if this law does not go into effect on August 14th, will the new policy still go into effect?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
It will.
Anything further from the board? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Schaff,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion approved.
Item 5.05 is the first reading of several new policies. We've been talking about these coming your way, and we have for you tonight policy 8450.01. It's protective facial coverings during a pandemic or epidemic events. So we will not vote on this tonight, but you'll be able to review this for the next several weeks before you vote on it officially in our next meeting. There is an updated 5200 attendance policy that also takes into account the pandemic and needing to look at attendance in different ways. And finally, policy 3220, it's the OTES, which is our teacher evaluation system. It's the standards-based teacher evaluation system in Ohio. We are being required right now to update this and approve this as a board by September 1st. And so that's why I don't think I said that date right. Hold on one second. We were actually supposed to adopt this by July 1st. We're a little behind in this, but it will not go into effect until next school year. So that's the difference here. So with that, I ask that you just be making yourself familiar with these policies, and they will be on the next board agenda for your vote. And with that, we will move on to item 5.06, the West Clermont School District 2021 Reentry Planning Update. Tonight, I'll be presenting at the beginning, and then Mr. Overby, our Chief Operating Officer, will be getting on to talk a little bit more about the health and safety elements of our plan. So as you know, last week, you guys voted on providing 2 options for our families. Those are illustrated here in the first slide. And option 1, which is our flex model option, has 3 different components. It's 5 days, all in face-to-face instruction that has the ability to move and change into either the 50% capacity plan, which means that half of our students would be at home 3 days a week, and they would be in face-to-face instruction 2 days a week, just depending on the cohort that they're going to be in. And then finally, the remote 2.0 learning option, which would mean that the conditions are in the community would mean that the spread it would be very easy to spread the virus. And so everyone would be kind of back on lockdown like as we were in the spring. And so what our plan is right now in our school system is that we will default always to the return to school plan 5 days a week. And it is our intention to announce that more in a final way at the August 15th communication that will be sending out to families. Right now, the color coding system in Clermont County has just improved from red to orange. And so that's a very good indication that people wearing masks and doing the different effects that impact the virus, from washing their hands to social distancing to wearing the mask, all those layered together are making a difference in our county and is the best bet and the best way for people to get back to school. And so hopefully we'll stay in the orange or even improve to yellow if at all possible between now and school starting, but we'll keep a close watch on that. If it were to change, we will have some serious conversations with the health department and determine if the conditions are still appropriate and safe for our staff and our students to return. Our teachers come back August 20th, and we'll be making this announcement on August 15th. Our students, as you know, the first date for them is August 31st or September 1st, depending on their grade level. We also have the West Clermont online option. That's an option that would allow people to sign up for the online service that would be provided for the entire semester. And if students wanted to stay in that option, they could continue for the school year, or they could choose to come back to face-to-face instruction. That would be, it's a semester commitment, and it is an option to come in and out as just at one semester at a time. Our first semester ends around January 15th, and the second semester ends at the end of the school year in May. As you know, we've been working under these assumptions as we've been doing our planning. And so I just want to reiterate those for everyone tonight, that we do not expect a vaccine before school to start. And that as a school system, we are challenged with the challenge of the virus in our community and the spread that is can be so dangerous, as well as the health issue of students not being in school and not having that opportunity for socialization, for the child nutrition, etc. We also want to make sure that everyone understands that it is our job to have a responsive, flexible plan that ensures the health and safety of students. And so being responsive means that we all have to be ready to pivot, to be able to change in between plans. And we just need everyone going into the year understanding that, because it is likely that guidelines that we put in place will be tested and evaluated and maybe changed or improved as the school year goes on. And that could either be from internal decisions that we make or mandates from our health department or in the state. We also want to be sure to make sure that everyone understands there are financial impacts to the COVID-19 restart plan. We certainly are monitoring and keeping a close look on that, but when you completely change how you operate and how you educate, there is financial impact. And so we truly appreciate the community asking us the questions, reading the information that we've been sending out, because we know that we are better together in this very challenging time that we are in. And so we just thank you for your support, your patience, and your understanding. we are driven by our values. You know, we always say we are on the rise in West Clermont. So relationships are number one. And it's vital to us that we're able to reconnect as students and staff together. Innovation, we want to make sure that our community understands that, you know, when we're given a challenge, we don't just fold and kind of look the other way and say, well, I don't know what we're going to do. We're always looking to reimagine and recreate. So our example now is the fact that we are standing up an online school inside of our school system. And so we're excited about the possibilities of that. And yet there are many challenges as we rethink teaching and learning from a online academy standpoint. Student-centered is a foundational piece of what we believe and what we value. And all of our decisions are about what is going to be best for students. And empowerment is about helping to equip and engage all of our stakeholders so that they are able to thrive in this learning environment. So the guiding principles that we used in our decision-making obviously are about student staff safety as the number one, and their well-being is priority in our minds. Being sure that we are committed to equity and inclusion. You know, one of the big changes that we are going to be making this fall is related to our ability to expand the one-to-one and a one-to-wolf initiative, which gives a Chromebook, a device for every single student. And as you might have guessed, there are many schools throughout the whole country also trying to make Chromebook orders. And so we are waiting patiently for our orders to come in so that we can be able to distribute those to you. We also are going to be collecting some of our Chromebooks. Our technology director has been able to get some rebates for some of our equipment that we have that is past its use and quality life. And so there's going to be lots of information coming out about the technology, and we just want to make sure that you guys realize that our commitment is to ensuring equity so that all students can access what they need for their learning. Also, quality instruction to meet our diverse student needs. You know, it's very important to the Board of Education that we are looking at each student as an individual and seeing where they are academically and assessing them and helping them progress along. We're going to continue to evaluate our plans and improve them as we go, and we will be nimble and flexible in our approach. Innovative practices, our partnerships are essential, and I just can't say enough, especially about the medical professionals and the Clermont County Health Department and all of the work that they've done to help support us in our planning. And of course, maximizing our resources. We're going to be asking our staff to wear lots of different hats when they come back to school, and that will be challenging for all of us. But as I said before, we're in this together, and we're going to support each other and be able to bring our students back to West Clermont. The safety protocols that I reviewed last meeting, I just wanted to reiterate them again. We packaged them as the West Clermont Stop the Spread protocols, but what I continuously hear from the health department is it's the importance of all of these things layered together is where you get the greatest impact. And so we're going to be encouraging and requiring that families check their temperatures of their students before they send them to school on a daily basis. It just needs to be part of the routine. Really good hygiene, making sure that we're wearing our facial coverings, our protective gear on our mouth and our nose, washing our hands, using water bottles so we're not at the water fountain spreading germs, and social distancing whenever possible. And in our plans, the face-to-face plan, we're able to be about 3 feet. And in our 50% capacity plan, it's more, we could get to the 6 feet. And so every bit of distance counts and it matters. And so that's incorporated into our plan. So at this time, I'm going to have Mr. Overby come on. We did receive some guidance from the Clermont County Public Health Department this week, and we did send this out to all families. This was a big piece of information that people have been waiting on to know what will happen if someone tests positive in our system, what will be the protocols. And it lays out very clear guidance for us to follow as a school system. So Mr. Overby, I'll turn that over to you.
So thank you, Mrs. Adams, and good evening, Board of Education, Mr. Romano, and all others. Yes, so I know Mrs. Adams has been in close contact with Clermont County Public Health since the beginning of the remote learning period that we were in. Then over the summer, there's been multiple meetings where folks have been there to help us and guide us through some of our decisions and things. But we were waiting for the July 29th guidance that talked about symptoms, what we would do with symptomatic individuals, exposed individuals, positive cases, contact tracing and things like that, based on CDC guidance and public health guidance there. So we fully expect to get updates of this and also compare this to what we have in our district playbook that we have talked about to make sure that we are following exactly what we should be from Clermont County's perspective, but also CDC and Ohio Public Health. Next slide, please. So speaking of student and staff health and wellness, we've been acquiring PPE equipment all summer long with Mr. Perry and Mrs. Burns and Mrs. Combs, our health assistant, director of operations, and district health nurse. We've been in contact with as many vendors as possible to get gloves, face shields, masks, hand sanitizer, spray disinfectant, thermometers, electrostatic cleaning machines, things like that. So honestly, it's an ongoing conversation with vendors and making sure that we have the right PPE equipment on site as we start the school year. Speaking of health clinics, we've been working through talking with Mrs. Combs and Mrs. Burns about how do we handle acute care, meaning the typical things that some of our students come to the an earache or a scrape or something like that, a recess injury that might take place, chronic illness, things like diabetes and asthma and things like that that we support, but also speaking back to the public health guidance, the protocols that we need to put in place for suspected COVID-19 situations that we may come in. So I've been working with them all summer. We're finalizing our process procedures that we'll be sharing with our teams over the next few weeks to get ready for a safe start to the school year. One key aspect that we've talked about many times, and I think Mr. Schaff brought it up last week, was the Wolves Wellness Center. We've been in meeting with them about every other week for the past month or so, and other contacts as well, to talk through a process and procedures. One, there is a new digital consent that's easier for parents to consent to the Wolves Wellness Center that we have will or have posted to our website, and we'll be communicating in our August 15th update. We also talked about process around well visits, things like physicals or other things, sick visits, like I mentioned, earaches that may take place. And a reminder, we do have a Wolves Wellness Center van that we can transport kids to and from our health clinic. We've also discussed the possibility of telehealth. So a student that may need, with parent permission and following all HIPAA guidelines and things like that, in that case, we would be able to possibly do telehealth from our school to the health center to kind of judge what the next level of care looks like. Some good things have come from our work, and I think that would be one of them, to maximize the technology when it comes to telehealth. Health Source of Ohio is still very much interested in mobile dentistry, but we're on pause right now to see how the beginning of the year goes and how it impacts and space that we have available and things like that. And then finally, been meeting closely with Child Focus. We have the same number of staff for social emotional support for our students as we did last year. We're going to review the referral process with our administrators and our teachers. And we also have the ability for telehealth when it comes to our students and Child Focus in when they're receiving their qualified mental health support that they receive, or maybe even a therapist that they're seeing, to troubleshoot how we can bring telehealth if necessary to those students. Next. So as you know, and the board is considering our face covering policy. We are asking that staff and students wear face coverings to school if approved by the board. We understand that our students may need a break throughout the day, as long as we are socially distanced away. That makes that a safe time for a break. But things like where students may not have the ability to take off the mask, or the bus rides, or small learning groups, when they're working with a teacher close to them. And one of the key things here that we did mention in one of our updates recently was that some of our students may not be able to wear a mask based on a chronic health condition or some situation similar to that. So working with our district health nurse, we're going to develop a process to ask for the right documents and consider when a student cannot wear a face cover. So one of the things that that you're considering with the attendance policy, there's a few highlights that I wanted to bring up. And present does not always have to be physically present in the age of remote learning and online academies and things of that nature. So, but starting from the top here, we are considering an online form for parents to complete to notify schools of absences. Our health clinic assistants, especially at the elementary level, play many roles, and one of those is reporting attendance. So what we're trying to accomplish here is to make it as easy as possible for parents to notify the school using the form of a Google form instead of an email or a phone call, and that would get us the information that we would need to follow to make sure we have the right information for the attendance documentation. We are researching the use of Remind. Many of our staff members, especially in athletics and other areas, use Remind already, but there's a process that we can complete that parents would get a text message notifying them of their student's absence within the 2-hour window that's mandated by state law. In the past, we'd used a service called School Messenger. It's a little bit more cumbersome to use. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible because pre-COVID, 2 years ago, our health clinic assistants charted over 75,000 visits to the health clinics across our schools. And we were tracking at a very similar number pre-March. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible and use tools that are available to us to make sure that we're meeting the law, make sure parents are know when their student is not in school. Things that have been added, considered to be added to the policy are excused absences for healthcare provider appointments. Medical excuses will not count towards excessive absences. Let's say if a student had to be quarantined or isolated at home, that would not count towards the truancy law that's in place. One of the big pieces of the new policy is around how are we going to track remote attendance. Now, quite honestly, we're really building this airplane in flight, so we haven't worked out all the details, but we know that we can count a mixture of synchronous and asynchronous work. Asynchronous is kind of anytime, anywhere, where synchronous is like what we're doing right now is a face-to-face digital meeting. So what our targets are about 27.5 hours per week of instruction at K-5 and about 30 hours per week, 6 through 12. And what we are thinking was 3 hours of that would be synchronous, where teachers are checking in with students, having small groups, morning meetings, reteaching sessions, check-ins, all of those type of things. So we can monitor our students' progress, but also making sure that they're getting that kind of daily check-in with a staff member each day. All right, now we're going to transition to the online academy. As you well know, we have talked about and have asked for families to apply for the online academy. Right now, as of midnight last night, we had 1,267 applicants, unique applicants for it. Our deadline, which I'll cover here again in a few minutes, is tomorrow at 9 p.m. So we do anticipate more families opting in over the next 24 hours or so. We're asking that families make a commitment for 1 semester. We're reminding them that the students move through the curriculum at the time that works best for them. Now, our teacher's typical contracted day is 7 to 2, 8 to 3, 9 to 4, somewhere in that range. So that's when our teachers will be holding their synchronous lessons and reteaching and morning meetings and things like that. But that doesn't mean that a student cannot work outside of that time in the evenings or over the weekend. What we found is, especially with some of our high school students, is that they worked a lot better in the evenings than they did maybe early in the morning. So having that ability to do that. As I've talked about, we're really going to work on teachers frequently engaging with students throughout the day, throughout the week. One key piece in the online approach is that elementary students will need a caregiver there for daily support. Although a lot of the work is asynchronous, there's still going to be more questions, especially for some of our K-5 students. Again, I talked about attendance and how we're still developing that. And then for our middle school and high school, some of our courses like band and chorus, drama, may not suit itself well to an online environment. We are giving students the option of coming in for that one class a day that they may not be able to fully experience in an online environment. These are our current numbers. Did notice a slight mistake as I didn't have a total. But like I said, we're about 1,267 students as of midnight last night. And what this equates to is about 16 to 17% of our overall population, student population. It's amazing how the numbers are fairly equivalent across many of the grade levels and at the middle school and the high school level. But we do expect to see an uptick over the next 24 hours, as I talked about. So I guess I know I am, but I probably should have said this earlier on. I will be coordinating the West Clermont Online Academy. For those of you who may not know, and the audience, former high school, middle school principal, assistant principal, so I do have experience in a face-to-face environment. I've been involved in technology pretty much since my career started in 1995, but now we're taking it to a whole new level. So with support from each building and with support of our district leadership team, I will be working to make sure that this is very successful with the online academy. We did choose our software package. It's called Accelerate Education. In our last update, there was some links that parents can, and I know parents have been accessing those links based on some of their questions. We are a part of a Hamilton County ESC cohort who has organized some purchasing power with Accelerate Education. A neighbor of ours, Batavia, is using it, and quite a few other districts. So what's nice about that is that we'll learn together and that we'll have some educational service center support to help us navigate this new process that we're working through. One of the things that we did hear from our vendor today was that parents were asking for a parent demo. That is not available, but we are constantly updating our key information document. Just got a text a little earlier that Mr. Ryle has updated it on the hub, and we'll continue to update information as we get it. One of the things that we did hear over the weekend was about fees. There will be no additional fees outside of the board-approved fee structure. For instance, at the elementary level, there's a $50 board-approved fee, and at the middle school, there's a $50 board-approved fee. Outside of possibly some classes at the middle school level, that will be we'll be following what the board approved fee structure is. And what I mean by outside of that is it's all listed. It was board approved, I think, in June. So there'll be no fees above and beyond what is listed in that fee structure. It's very important that our families and our students connect to their brick and mortar schools. So the typical communication would come from the building level on Fridays and Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays. We'll have a similar email coming from the West Clermont Online Academy, but at the same time, those students will be with their brick and mortar school, so they'll be able to attend events. They will be in the yearbook. They will be able to get their pictures taken, things like that. But at the same time, we'll be able to provide our own communication when it comes to the goings on of the West Clermont Academy. So to be clear, they're part of their Merwin family or their high school family or their middle school family, but they're also part of this West Clermont online school as well. Over the weekend, I spent some time just working through a 30-day plan of communication, of different documents that have to be created, that we would share with parents, roles and responsibility to the teachers, quite a few. It's going to be a busy month. It's going to be a busy month. But we have a plan. We're working through that plan, and we are we'll be on track and ready to open on August 31st. So one of the things that I think is very important that as our staff will connect with our students and parents, just like they would if they were online with a face-to-face with the open house or the videos that'll be created. And one of the key pieces over the next few weeks is making sure we get the student schedules correct and get those classes built and things. One thing that I did want to say about the registration or the application is due at 9 p.m. tomorrow evening. And then hopefully, we did say August 8th, but hopefully Thursday is our goal, is that there'll be an email that will explain to parents about final forms. Final forms is the way we're going to ask parents to officially sign off on being a part of the West Clermont Online Academy. But then it's also bigger. It's a part of a bigger strategy that we'll be using, that many of our parents at the high school and the middle school that are familiar with athletics, when they can digitally sign off on different documents. We are in the process of rolling that out also for on the academic side. So more information will come, but it's very important that parents be expecting an email no later than Saturday with a confirmation date of August 14th of saying kind of that final sign off that we're a part and that your students will be a part of the West Clermont Online Academy.
For our next steps, we have, as Mike has mentioned, all of the Online Academy enrollment, staffing, and curriculum work to be done and planning for professional learning. It is not typical to pull together an online school in a 3 to 6 week time frame, and that's what we're doing. And so we're spending a lot of time shoring that up as quickly as possible so we can serve our students well. We also have to complete a remote learning school designation. That'll be something, board, that I will bring to you later in the month because it has to be approved. I think the deadline might be in September. So we're going to get that as organized as soon as possible. The financial analysis and the human resource allocations will be working in tandem with Dr. Foltz's office and Mr. Romano. It's going to be extremely important that we stay in sync as we are making decisions about implementing our plans, as well as financially supporting our plans and being able to maximize our resources to the best of our ability. There's going to be cohort and transportation planning. And what I mean by that, I had mentioned in our last session that by August 15th, the principals will be communicating out to the families if students will be in cohort 1 or in cohort 2, so they'll know which days of the week they will attend school based on that decision. And so that will help for the 50% capacity plan if we have to enact that. So we'll communicate that. And again, just a reminder that families inside the same home will be on the same plan, and we will work to have students aligned throughout the whole system, K through 12 on the same plan for families, so that you can help with childcare and planning purposes, etc. Our 6 through 12 students are expected to go remote during the 50% capacity plan, but we do have allowances to have people come in if necessary following our cohort model. And transportation, they are really going to be challenged. It's always difficult at this time of year to staying in sync with the enrollment department, to look at class sizes and what's happening in the building, and then what needs to happen on the roads with our buses. And so we are challenging them greatly with needing to be ready for face-to-face 5 days a week with a backup plan of what the 50% capacity plan will look like. And so they're going to be working on a very tight timeline. We'll be communicating information to you. So look for those deadlines and those kind of benchmark dates communicated in our August 15th. That's really going to be a large communication with a lot of information. It'll be important to all of you. And finally, our team is coming together as administrators this week, finalizing the playbook, getting it out to our staff so they can start to understand and visualize the ways that we are going to be coming back to face-to-face school or the 50% or remote. And then we're going to be working on, there's a huge list. Actually, we spent some time in our cabinet meeting today looking at the professional learning needs of our staff. And it goes from really technical kinds of things that we need to refresh on, as well as some instructional things and social emotional learning. So we're going to put everything we can into professionally developing our staff so they feel confident and are well equipped to welcome our students back. As you know, our communication plan is a rhythm of on August 15th as well as August 30th. You will get communication from the district office. There might be some little tiny communications in between, but those are the big ones to look for. And we'll continue to post those on social media as well as send to your email. And you can begin to expect, now that we've hit August, the building principals will send a weekly communication at that end of the week time slot. Each building has kind of a different one, but it's near the end of the week to prepare you for the next week. That rhythm will begin, and so you can get some more building specific information that way. And I brought this up at our last session is just to remind everybody why are we here? We're here for our students, and we commit to excellence with every learner, every day, and every way. And when we created this mission statement, it had a particular meaning to us, and certainly it has just gotten a deeper, more meaningful sense to us as we've really looked at how we serve kids, how we take care of their social emotional needs, how we take care of them academically, their health needs, their wellness needs. And it's a tall task for a school system, something that we embrace. And this is why we get out of bed. This is why we do what we do. And there are just extra challenges. And so I want to continue to assure staff and parents that we are working hard to think through all the details, to listen to your comments, to adapt and change based on just different conditions, and to serve your students well. That's why we're here. Finally, West Clermont will be responsive and we will communicate. That is what you can count on. These plans will be continued to be re-examined based on the changing information and conditions, community spread of the virus, and recommendations and guidance from our public health department. And I really want to emphasize this to say, we are going to be as planned and prepared as possible. That's what we're dedicated to doing. We're spending every minute of every day doing that. But we know as new information comes in, as we actually are living out our plans, we will need to make adjustments. And so we are going to be clear communicators, we're going to be responsive, and we are asking that you be with us in this journey and so that we can be better together. Board, at this time, do you guys have additional questions for us that we can answer for you?
I do. I have a couple things. One of the big questions that the board has been asked numerous times is, for us to clarify the reason behind committing to a semester, a full semester, as opposed to a quarter. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit on that?
What has to be taken into consideration here is the significant staffing issues associated with pulling teachers out of the mix. So for example, let's say right now a school has 4 sections of 4th grade. And because of the need in 4th grade across the online academy, a teacher is going to need to be pulled out of that mix. And those students are going to have to be reshuffled among the 3 remaining teachers. And so that is a significant effort that will have to happen across our whole system to staff this model. And so to think that we have to go in and out of that in just a short quarter, it's too big of a lift. It's too complicated. There's too many moving parts that could compromise our ability to be effective. And so we need to keep it as solid and consistent as possible so that we can deliver on what we've committed to delivering, which is a really good experience. And so we can't have the moving in and out inside of our system. And we'll have to start working probably in November to start to see if people are wanting to come in and out, because it could just significantly shift where our staffing goes. And we're not really a system built to change staffing in and out throughout a school year. And so we'll be as responsive and creative as possible, but we have to control absolutely everything that we can control, we have to control, because there's going to be so many things that we can't in this return.
Thank you.
Mr. Overby, is there anything else that you would add to that?
No, I think you did a nice job of sharing the complexity of a schedule and staffing and matching those two up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't have 8,500 students to worry about, or 8,500 plus students, it would be much simpler to be a little bit more flexible. But when you have that many students and then the corresponding staff to go with that, that would be impossible to manage.
Yeah, and we've talked about enrollment before. It just doesn't nicely and easily balance across the district. I mean, when Mr. Overby showed the numbers, we are seeing a very similar pattern in each school, and it's a very similar percentage from each school. So that's helpful, but it's not clean because we aren't grade level schools in our elementary class sizes here. It's going to be, very, very finicky to play with this and to get it just right so that we are not overloading class loads and kind of defeating the purpose of why we're offering this to begin with.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a few questions. You had commented that we had changed the One to Wolf program, and that are all students getting a new Chromebook, or is it just students that currently do not have a Chromebook?
Yeah, there are some students in the mix, and I can't remember exactly how the cycle works. So maybe Mr. Priest might even want to get down here to clarify. It won't be everybody's getting a brand new Chromebook. It'll be
Okay.
covering the deficit from students who did not have a device, which grade level was not covered in the One to Wolf initiative with these new devices, plus some replacements in there because the devices are at their limit. So I don't know, Mr. Priest, if you would add any specific, I know you know the cycle way better than I do.
Yeah, so we normally issue new Chromebooks during One to Wolf to the 6th grade and the 9th grade, and we will again do that this year. But we have all of the elementary grades to take into account, plus the senior class. And so the district has already, were previously in carts, we have a number of Chromebooks that can serve several grade levels. And we need to get the life out of that investment. And so some of those Chromebooks still have 2 years left in them, and so we have very thoughtfully and carefully counted those and know how many we have. And based on our anticipated enrollment in certain grade levels, we've distributed those at a grade level distribution that makes sense per building, per grade. And then we are purchasing new where needed. And so what will happen is 1st grade and 5th grade will get new. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th will be issued devices that have life left in them. The 4th grade will get the devices that have the least life left in them, with the anticipation that this program continues again next year. And now 1st, 5th, and 9th get new Chromebooks every year. 1st, 5th, and 9th, and they use them for a 4-year cycle. And that's kind of how it's planned out. Obviously, we will modify and adjust as needs require, but that's sort of the best use of the equipment we have now, the maximizing the life of that equipment we have now to get the most out of that investment, and the most regular life cycle as we go forward in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. I have another question, and this is directed to Mr. Overby. The telehealth option, is that available for our WCOA students, or if a student is in remote learning?
Yes, and to be clear, we're still in discussion of how that will work and what devices we would need and how it attaches to the network and things. But yes, I fully expect that in the online environment to really advertise, for lack of a better word, the options that could be available to use the Wolf's Wellness Center remotely or physically. So all those processes have to be continued to work out, but absolutely, they already have telehealth. Health Source of Ohio and Child Focus both already have a telehealth process from home. We're just going to bring it into the school to make us, if needed, to be more efficient.
That's exciting. And then you mentioned the dental is on hold, but what about optometry?
Well, to be clear, mobile dentistry, like going into the buildings and doing the cleanings and evaluation, physically at our Wolves Wellness Center, they're fully functional. Optometry's up and running, dental's up and running. We have a nurse practitioner and a therapist available there as well. So the brick and mortar building, for lack of a better word, is working as scheduled.
Okay, great. And last question. Mrs. Adams, you had mentioned that the communications from the each building principals are going to start soon, the weekly. How do our new students that have come to our community, whether they're a kindergartner or they're migrating into West Clermont, how do they ensure that they are receiving those emails on a weekly basis?
The system rolls over, so it's as they get added, they start to get incorporated. So I would just say for families, if you're not getting a communication by the end of the weekend, this weekend coming up, that you should contact your school or contact our office for enrollment to make sure everything's covered there. Each building does it a little bit. Some people are in the rhythm of Fridays, some are Saturdays, and some are Sundays, and we didn't sync that up and require everybody to do it on the same day. It's just we wanted them to have it at the end of the week before starting the new week. So as I said, everyone's different, but you should expect something this weekend.
Okay, perfect.
Mrs. Adams, one thing that Michelle said kind of resonated in my mind, but are we doing anything? I know we're doing our virtual open houses, but are we doing anything specific for new students to our district, or fifth graders going into the middle school, eighth graders going into the high school, to acclimate them to the building? Any kind of tours or anything like that?
Well, that August 31st start date is to cover those students who are new to schools. And so they will be the only grade levels that come into the schools at that time. So for the high school, they'll start with freshmen. At the middle school, they'll start with their sixth graders and be able to orientate them. So that's how that section will be covered. In terms of new students, I know there's going to be specific reaching out to them when it comes to, like, maybe you're just a new fourth grader, new to the district in some other way. The building principals will be specifically working on those plans so that those don't fall by the wayside. And then, as you know, we have the phase-in that we do with kindergarten and preschool. So we're hitting all the transition spots with really specific program. And then each building will handle the new students and their unique needs. Whether if they're brand new to the school and need tours or whatever they'll need, that'll have to be more on an individualized basis.
I appreciate the fact that we're doing that staggered start with the sixth grade and the ninth grade in those transition years, so that students, they're all in the same boat. They're all going to be lost together, and they're not going to be mingling with others of maybe an upper class that may intimidate them from focusing on what they need to be doing and learning their ways. And having at the high school specifically, having like the 10th and 11th and 12th grade teachers dedicated for those grades still reporting. There are going to be extra eyes and ears and hands in the hallways to help with those transition times. So I think that it's going to be a great opportunity. And I know that when we put that plan into place, it was not meant to fill the need here in place of the in-person orientations and walk around the school and things like that, but it worked out nicely that we're providing a need for that. So
we had built that into the plan last year, that we thought a whole dedicated day to those kids being in the new environment with all that assistance was going to be the most impactful. So yeah, it's working out doubly well for us, we believe.
Absolutely. Thank you for your forethought on that. That was great.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I had a question regarding, you had mentioned about the cohorts, and that you were going to be communicating the cohorts. I think you said by August 15th. And that's just, I just want to make sure that's just to let parents know what cohort they would be in if we are forced to move to a 50-50 plan, right?
Correct.
That's
there's because you attend 2 days of the week and then you're in remote learning for 3 days of the week. And so we need to be able to clarify if you're coming on Monday, Tuesday, or if you're coming on Thursday, Friday. And so each family will get a specific communication that tells them their cohort.
And that's just in the event we move to the 50-50, the plan is still all in, but by August 15th, we'll have, but even after August 15th, if you announce, say, we're going to go all in, and then there's a huge spike come August 31st, hey, there might need to be a change and we're going to switch to the cohort. And everybody already knows their cohort because that was communicated to them previously, right?
Yes, it's meant not to put everybody in panic mode so that people will know their days and to be able to plan ahead for childcare. I mean, frankly, it's very challenging. We know for families that this would be a very hard plan to go into. But if the conditions call for it, and we want to continue to be able to get children and staff to school, and we feel like we can do it safely by increasing the distance and cohorting families and children, then we want to activate that. And so we want to make sure that it's heard loud and clear. I heard on the news today, there's a school in another state. They started one day and they had to close down the next. It's a real that's a real thing. That's a real possibility. And so when we talk about a flex plan that has the ability to be face-to-face, half capacity with 50% or remote, we mean we need to move in between all three of those and not take weeks to adjust. It can move on a dime. And I'm not excited about saying that. I'm not even excited about picturing it, but it could be our reality. And so we just want to be thoughtful and be thinking ahead to the best of our ability and work together on it.
Well, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that we're able to communicate to families 2 weeks before school starts that if we need to move to a plan, then that, your child is going to go Monday or Tuesday, or your child or children are going to go Thursday, Friday. And so they have that opportunity to plan. It's almost like knowing snow days in advance if, it's going to come up, but my next question is, do you, and I haven't heard any of this, so I'm just asking, but are there any plans to change start and end times of the schools based upon transportation needs or flexibility needs, or is just start and end times or what they have planning on what they've always been?
Yeah, well, the transportation program at this time can only foresee and plan so many things without knowing all the solid data about who's going to be in the academy, who's going to need a ride, who's not going to need a ride. And so their heavy lifting is still yet to come in the month of August. There's been nothing from their office that's given me a sign or signal that we need to consider different start times or end times. Like that's not in our plan. But as I said, until you get into the work sometimes and see the ramifications of decisions and how they play out, things could change. And so I don't anticipate that, but I don't want to sit here today and say by magically everything's just going to work out and it's going to be perfectly on time like it always has. We're going to look at it very closely because we want to be as efficient and as effective as possible. And so I don't want to get everybody worked up about that. I want to just keep it as is, but no. Once you do the models is when you figure out like what the challenges are with them. And so we'll just have to bring that forward to you. We meet again on August 17th. And so by that time, I will be able to talk more about transportation and just give a better picture.
So it's just, and I didn't mean to start bringing up for panic mode or anything, but it's just to reiterate that everything is fluid and everything is up for, planning, and that it's, people have to be prepared for everything. And I'm sure that it didn't really even occur to me until this presentation was going on today about, what other adjustments are needing to be made or thought of as things continue to evolve.
Right. And that's, I appreciate you bringing it up because one of the things, I think I used the chicken or the egg concept in our last presentation. You can't plan for the WCOA until you know how many people want to do it. Well, nobody wants to sign up until they know what they're getting into, fully. And so it's these kinds of decisions. You can't plan transportation in July. You have to know your enrollment. You have to know who's actually coming and who's going. And so a lot of these decisions are like game time decisions, August in the weeds decisions. And until we get into our new factors and how they might trigger other things, we just don't know. And so again, every single day in August, I think is going to feel like a week because there's a lot of action that has to be packed into each day.
Well, and I can say that I really appreciate your effort, Mr. Overbees, and everyone else, the staff, the administrative team, the teachers, the staff, and just everybody in general for, working through the anxiety and the fears and just, putting our best foot forward. And really, you can see the planning. I mean, you can see it, and, you can't really necessarily feel it yet, but I mean, you can see that it's coming, and we know that it's coming. And, there's just a lot of anxious people, and I feel their anxiety. I have two elementary students, so it's, there's the anxiety, but I know that, there's comfort knowing that there is a plan and it is being planned and, working the plan, and it's going, we're all going to get through this together.
Yes, thank you for that. Another one that we haven't really spent a lot of time here, though, is staffing. And Dr. Fultz is with us here, and he is meeting with individual staff to look at their particular needs, if they're in a special needs kind of category. And if we aren't able to meet their needs and keep them safe, if there's a situation where that's true, then that teacher may be on a leave. And then what that's going to do is going to open up a spot. So that means it's going to open up a search for a new teacher. And so then you're starting the hiring process. And we think our staff is set right now, and it may not be. And so again, it's the domino effects. It's the chicken or the egg. It's lots and lots of moving parts and pieces that where we all have to keep working together at this, simultaneously, and paying attention to the left and the right, because some decision we might be making out of this office might trigger a problem for another office. And so we are trying to stay very linked, very tight in our work, and try to predict as many things as possible. I know as a board, you expect us not to just take each day as it is. You want us to be horizon planners, and we are working hard to do that and anticipating. But every day we're uncovering new, nuances that certainly challenge us.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Mrs. Adams, were we going to include May Hannah in our?
Well, we are, next we have board or superintendent comments. That's 5.07. And I think I've shared everything that I want to share this evening. So we'll move on to 5.08, which is superintendent committees. And with us tonight, we have May Hannah from the Great Oaks. I don't think any other committees have met since our last meeting, since it was just Wednesday. I don't know if any of us met on a Saturday or Sunday as a committee. And so I think we'll skip everyone else unless you tell me there's something you want to report out. And we'll have May Hannah talk to us about the Great Oaks. She represents us at those board meetings and can kind of give a flavor for our students who attend the Great Oaks and how they're going to be starting the school year.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, West Clermont board members and Superintendent Adams and the West Clermont community. Thanks for the opportunity to attend the meeting this evening and talk to you a little bit about the Oaks. As the superintendent stated, I'm the West Clermont designee for the Oaks. And just a quick update, we have 257 West Clermont students attending the Great Oaks campuses this fall. The breakout is 204 of the students will be going to Live Oaks, 1 will be at Laurel Oaks, and 52 will be at Scarlet Oaks. The school year for the Great Oaks begins on Monday, August 17th. As you've been discussing this evening, it's all of the plans are in place, but everyone knows that the plans can turn on a dime, given a mandate by the governor or any special set of circumstances arise with this pandemic that we all have witnessed. So given all of that, whenever students, staff, and visitors are together in the Oaks buildings, social distancing will be in place. A minimum of 6 feet will be practiced. Facial coverings will be worn by everyone, and all the equipment and buildings will be sanitized per health and CDC guidelines. The Oaks has made the decision to also have cohorts. There will be an A and a B cohort starting. Students will be grouped into those 2 cohorts with all academics online. That way the students will have an opportunity to have the hands-on career technical education while they're on campus the 2 days a week. So if the students are in the A cohort, they will be on campus Mondays and Thursdays, and the B cohort will be Tuesdays and Fridays. During the remaining 3 days, students will work remotely on academic work and other homework, with Wednesday set aside for one-on-one remote assistance. This will run at the Oaks through the first quarter. That's October 16th. And then a decision, I'm sure a plan will be in place for how they'll continue, or they're hoping, like everyone else is hoping, that they'll be able to come back fully, but I think that's questionable. As we all know, all of us that are in education or following education know that that's going to be questionable. As I said, the decision that Superintendent Snyder and the board has decided on is that the most important thing for the students to have is the hands-on career training. And so those 2 days will be fully dedicated to that. So the students also that are there on those 2 days will be in the same room in their career lab for the entire day, reducing the number of times the students will need to be changing, or the faculty will be coming to the rooms, and the students will stay in those rooms for the multiple periods that they're on campus. So that's about all that I have. I can send this report to you to share, Superintendent, for the minutes, but there is a restart website. It's www.greatoaks.com/restart. It has all the information for the Great Oaks on there. There's several iterations of updates and information about the plan. And for the different campuses, the different deans have announcements for the different campuses. So if anyone's interested, they can go there for more info.
Well, May, we certainly appreciate you attending those meetings to represent us here at West Clermont. And we think you're uniquely positioned with your role at UC Clermont to be a great advocate for us and to help us grow our programming for our students as we prepare them, whether they're headed to the Oaks or headed to college or wherever. And so thank you so much. Have you made the decision at UC Clermont how you'll return in the fall yet?
Right now, yes. Right now, we have made the decision to return in a hybrid format. So we are going to have 30% of our classes will be in person. Mostly they will be labs that will be returning, and 70% of our classes will be online. But like you, our plan includes a turn on a dime plan for completely online instruction, but we're making sure that the classrooms have 40% capacity only. It's been a very complicated, I mean, you have 8,000 students that you're dealing with, and we only have about 3,000. So it is very complicated to turn this quickly, but our faculty have been working all summer to prepare for both instances. But I think in our minds, we feel as though we are mostly going to be online, and we have been the staff has been working remotely since March with very little return to campus. So
thank you for sharing that with us. I think it's been really important as a school system that we continue to network with our educator friends in higher ed, as well as across the city and the state. And that's what we've been working hard to do. So we appreciate that. Is there any other board member that would like to add their comments about Great Oaks before we move on to board comments? Okay, with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mrs. Brinkman.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Moving on to board business comments. Mrs. Delaney, do you want to kick us off? You have anything?
I do. I just want to thank everybody for their patience as we are baby steps getting through this process. It's definitely, it's new for all of us. And it's been very reassuring for me as a board member to know that we're taking the right baby steps, because I'm seeing very similar actions coming from two places that touch my life very, very greatly. My employer, I work for one of the largest healthcare companies in the United States, and we had our conversation last week with our CEO, and the our slogan that we're saying, return, reimage, revamp with West Clermont. is very similar to what we're saying at my employer. So I feel like if we as a school district are doing something that a very large healthcare company is doing, we're following down the right path. And then also as a parent of a college student, my daughter's university, we are very fortunate that she's able to go back on campus this year because she's in a small school. There are only 1,200 students there, but the faculty there has made every stride to make sure that they can have as normal of an experience as possible and have in person. And we are following along in their footsteps and doing some of the same things that here at West Clermont that they're doing at the college level. So that's, I as a parent appreciate that. And I've been sharing with Mrs. Adams that, we're doing things other people are doing. So we're going in the right direction. So I ask that all of our community and our parents, please just be patient a little bit longer. We're getting there. And when these playbooks come out with all of the answers and in them, and the answers could change, but we're getting there. So thank you. And everybody enjoy the last couple weeks of the summer with your kiddos. And as we begin what our new normal is going to be.
Thank you. Mr. Chumley?
Yeah. I think we've all kind of stated how appreciative we are, but I would also like to say thank you to everyone putting in the time and energy. It seems like things haven't stopped rolling since the beginning of the year, really. But I personally appreciate it as well. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Romano. I'm excited to start working and build a relationship and see what we can do together. So welcome aboard.
Mr. Schaaf?
I just want to reiterate my appreciation to Mrs. Adams and the administrative team and the faculty, staff, and everyone for working through the tough times and getting things ready for our return. I know that there's a lot of noise out there on a national level, on a state level, on a local level, there's the great debate about to go back or not to go back, and that I'm very appreciative of the options that we're able to provide that other districts are not providing. It's just another way of how West Clermont is a district of choice, and how we're able to accomplish more with less. I do want to voice my appreciation to both of our associations for the contracts, getting those through and approved. I know it's not what everybody wanted, but it gets us through this year, and then hopefully come next year we can properly address all of the issues that we have going on. But I'm just really appreciative of everybody for understanding the amount of stress that everybody's under, and just extending what we have for another year. Excuse me. And then again, welcome to Mr. Romano. Just to reiterate what Mr. Chumley said, I'm very excited for the future and what you bring to West Clermont. And I'm a firm believer of things happen for a reason. And Kelly was a great treasurer, and she was great for our district, and she's exactly what we needed at the time. And now, as things happen, you're with us, and I think that that's for a reason. I think that what you bring to West Clermont is really going to help West Clermont excel. So I appreciate that, and welcome you. And we didn't really get a chance to say goodbye to Kelly on Wednesday, but I wish her luck and all of that. So other than that, that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Rudy?
Thanks to everyone for your hard work. We've got a great plan going. The very appreciative of all that, and welcome, Mr. Romano. Glad to have you on board.
All right. Okay, I have nothing further. Everybody has said everything, and I just echo everyone's comments. Can we have a motion to withdraw, I'm sorry, to to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Perfect. Roll call?
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Schaff,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes to adjourn.
Motion approved. Our next meeting will be on August the 17th. We are very much hoping that the governor lightens up on the restrictions of us gathering in person. And hopefully we'll be able to get back together sometime soon. And in the meantime, we'll plan to be remote until things change. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.